Yeah, the Outback is just inhabitable.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they serve steaks
and
and onions that they fry.
Right. And
Yeah.
shrimp.
The Outback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
On the
and
Barbie. The Barbie.
Barbie.
Yeah,
Barbie.
Bobby. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so love that.
With the
Love that.
wallabies.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from our partners in the Twisted World.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from Twisted World.
What is up? Welcome back, Twisted World fam. It's your boy Aaron here again. Episode 2, the Thanos Effect. We'll get to that in a minute. But as always, I got my boys Cody with me
What up?
and the infamous Andy.
Yo.
So here we are again, talking on conspiracy theories, myths, legends. How's everybody been? Cody, any crazy stuff going on?
Yeah, I've been chilling. I mean, ever since we last recorded, had a good weekend. It's almost Halloween. We went to Haunted Forest, Dixon, California.
Yeah.
If you know, you know. Place was tight.
Yeah.
So.
Shoot it out there. Scary stuff. Jumping out. Andy, what is up?
Nothing. I've been waiting and preparing for this moment for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're planning and prepping all this stuff.
Man.
I'm ready. I'm ready for the world to know.
Yeah.
That we don't need you guys here and that I can do this all alone.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, all of our fans out there, as he put it, we are not needed. We are just his sideshows, you know. But
minions, that works.
Yeah.
Listen,
whatever you want to call it.
All elites need people.
Yeah.
You're my people.
You know,
Henchmen.
Dr. Evil.
Henchmen.
Henchmen's
I like it.
Right.
I like it. I think
Dr.
it's great.
Evil had, Mini-Me. I'm guessing
Listen,
that's Cody.
if I can sit and pet my cat all day, sounds great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like a fantastic day.
Goals.
Yeah. Squad goals, life goals. Let's go. So, a lot of stuff going on out there. The world's a crazy world, twisted as we like to believe it, right? Really hard to know what's real, what's not. You wake up every day, you're on social media, you're listening to the news, you're listening to friends and family, and everybody's got their opinions and their perceptions. And what's your thoughts on just what's going on in the world, in our country, in our state, just in our neighborhoods? I mean, what's your thoughts there, Cody?
A lot of tension.
Yeah.
If I can describe it like that. I mean, it feels like every time I go outside that and it's never felt this way before in my entire life, where every time you go to a public place, I feel so on edge with other people. Like there's just so much tension about like how does this person view me if I don't have a mask on, or if there is a mask or whatever. Even if I'm not really even thinking about it, I feel a lot more on edge than I ever have before in my entire life.
Yeah, it's really hard to try to appease anyone and everyone, because who really knows what's going through everybody's head, right? I mean, you walk through the grocery store, you see some people with masks, some people without, and everybody's just kind of looking at everybody. And I think that there's just a hesitation in human beings, right? In general, regardless of what's going on in the government or anything, we're just talking down the meat aisle, right? You see people with their kids and
Right. I mean, I think that's the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast is to open up dialogue again, because it feels like, I don't find myself to be super young or super old, but the dialogue's broken down.
Yeah.
The talking about it's broken down.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
we just lost it. And so it's kind of nice to be able to actually have a space where we can talk, and regardless of agenda, right? Regardless of what my belief is and what's happening, I'm going to talk my point and where we're at and what I think is going on, and or counter the argument that there is nothing going on.
Right.
But it's good to have that dialogue back. And so I think that's kind of the point of having this as an outlet, is something we can have open conversation. It's a crazy world right now, right?
Yeah.
Most of us are finding ourselves a little bit more secluded than before.
Yeah, and it's just utter, division through judgment, I believe. I'm old enough, and we won't go into how old I am, but I'm old enough to know and remember that there was a time where even in families, like you could have one person voting, say Democrat, one person voting Republican, and it was cool. It was fine. It was like, hey, That's your choice.
Mm.
It's your choice to wear green today. It's your choice to wear white pants after whatever. You're not supposed to wear white pants. I don't even know if that's a thing
Labor Day?
anymore. Labor Day, I guess. I'm not sure what that's about. Get dirty, stuff like that. Never wore white pants. It never happened. Cody, what are you thinking? What do you think about the division that's going on? What about just here in our local town? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think there definitely is division. I think that, but the question is, is it intentional and coming from, coming from a power that be,
Right.
powers that be?
Sure.
Is it intentional, and to what degree is it intentional, and what isn't? You know what I
Right.
mean? That's what's to be
Right.
talked about for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, leading into that, just a quick recap of episode 1 for all you guys that listen to it. If you've already liked or shared or followed any one of our social media sites, we'd love to hear from you. You're definitely, our family, our fans, and we want to hear your thoughts. But quick recap, some of the important pieces from episode 1 of what we're doing here, what we're talking about, what's fact, what's fiction, what's really going on out there. We're not the answer givers. We're just the discussion point. We're just the beginning. Again, want to hear from you guys. So, Project Mockingbird, real quick. Okay. We know this was once a pretty big conspiracy theory. Majority of Americans 100% did not believe it. Many years later, comes out, it was real, right? But at one point, the government infiltrated media and sent in, I think the number was 400 journalists, something along those lines, and to incite whatever form of media they wanted the people of America to believe, right? And with that, again, it just showed the ability and the potential of control of media, right? Control of thought. A lot of people listened and watched the news. I mean, they still do, of course, but it was even more prevalent, I think, back then, just because there wasn't so much news, right? There wasn't as many newspapers, there wasn't as many magazines, there wasn't as many social media didn't exist, right? None of these things existed, so it was like this intent on the media, and it was like we believe 100% of what we see, so they controlled it. So, just looking at Project Mockingbird, not anything else. Recapping your thoughts, where you at with that?
I think it was really nice to kind of draw a point to where we started to see these controlling, sort of manipulations in the media, because you look at it now and you're like, oh, it's totally going on, but then you're like, but where did it all come from? And it's nice to have a point of reference on kind of where it all started snowballing from.
Right.
And so I like the way we kind of not figured it out, but I mean, the way we looked at it.
Well, let's be real. I mean, the main point of talking about that is this concept of conspiracy, right? So when if you talked 10, 15 years ago about the concept of conspiracy, it was usually rolled around with some kind of whack job. We were talking about a movie the other day, 2012, right?
2012,
the guy in the RV up on the top of the hill, and he's like, it's going to flood.
Yeah.
And it looks crazy. And he's supposed to look like this whack job that
right.
I guess was right?
Yeah.
And the reality is, I think that portrayal is intentional. That portrayal is to say, look, they're whack jobs. They're not meant to be. And what we're finding is, I think nowadays you're finding more people looking at it going, well, is it real?
Right.
Is this commonplace? And we thought it to be some kind of bizarre, off the chain kind of wacky theory. And finding now that Project Mockingbird in specific is kind of like crazy, because you look at the media now and you go, it seems like it's very swayed one direction, or it moves on from topic to topic to topic, right? We focus on what a comedian says on a Netflix show, as opposed to what's happening in Afghanistan, right? Like we focus on different things, but they control what we see constantly.
Right. And keep something in mind too, even though now, and it's like this big piggyback, like the reality is this Project Mockingbird came out. We know fact came out, prove it happened. Okay. So on, time goes on. And now it's like this common theme where people are like, oh yeah, it's being controlled here, but it's back to the division part, right? So then you've got like the Democrat liberal side that's like, during like the Trump campaign and all that, it's like, oh, Fox News is controlling their media for him. And then it was like the other side, oh, CNN it was like everybody comes to this agreement that there's some kind of control going on. Like everybody, it's like brought to fruition, brought to light. Yet at the end of the day, now instead of, oh, it's not a conspiracy theory anymore, but now which side is the conspiracy theory? Now,
Right.
which side is doing the controlling? And that's where it's kind of blossomed. And again, you've got the Trump side when the Republicans, when the Democrats were saying, oh, they're doing, the Republicans are like, no, we're not. Ours is fact, and so on and so forth. And it's back and forth. And who's right, who's wrong, what's fiction, what's real.
Yeah.
And so again, we know Project Mockingbird took place. We know that there was control of the media, of the government, and now we're in a place where nobody really knows. No, we know that it's very 100% possible, proven fact, possible. We just don't know who or what is doing it, and what can we believe is real, what side is real.
Mhm.
And again, that's really, the division and the perception of what's transpiring. So, some of the other ones, real quick, we won't go too deep in these other ones, but the Uss Maddox Incident, the ability to create an incident that was enough to push Congress to incite war, right? And here's again this incident. We had a highly decorated pilot, seen the incident, said, "Hey, wasn't real," but this ship was supposedly fired on by Vietnamese torpedo boat. And they take it to Congress. Congress is like, yep, oh yeah, you're firing on the U.S. You've now incited war. Congress says unanimously, pass, go to war, right? And we go into one of the bloodiest wars in American history, right? We lost a lot of American troops. So what the basis behind that was, some believe that it was to gain reputation for the president. Again, it's just control factors, things put into place to convince the minds of, the collective of this country in order to, push some level of an agenda, right? Again, we know it to be, we know there was enough evidence to show that we're not 100% guaranteed the USS Maddox incident was a fallacy, but we have a highly decorated pilot and some other things. And even the president was supposedly caught saying himself that it never truly took place. So, fact, fiction, don't know, but these are just points that we have to definitely analyze. And then the other one was the FBI Counterintelligence Program, right? They launched this program to, quote unquote, protect the Americans versus Soviet infiltration. Then you find out later they're targeting American civil rights leaders. One in particular, a big one, we all know there's a holiday after him, but he was their number one most wanted, literally their number one target. Believes that they tried to get him to commit suicide through multiple attempts and all that, and his name's Martin Luther King. So this FBI counterintelligence program, protect the American people. Martin Luther King was an American. Martin Luther King stood for civil rights. He believed in civil rights of all men and women. He was a peaceful man, and yet we know that they were targeting. So the biggest piece here that I just want to discuss before we get into the Thanos Effect, which we'll talk about deeper in this episode, is the ability by our own government to control, incite, target, their agenda, whether they believe it's for the betterment of all Americans, and that's a lot of times how it's perceived, right? That's a lot of times at least how they want it perceived. And who knows? Could be wrong, could be right. We don't know. It's just a fact. It's laid out. Andy, what's your thoughts? Well, I mean, having that kind of power,
well, I think it happens on both sides.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, I think
Yeah.
anybody in power does, right?
Right.
We understand that, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
But I think that there is
Spider-Man's
a little
uncle.
bit of manipulation.
His name is Benjamin.
Ben.
Okay,
Uncle Ben.
say his
Uncle
damn
Ben.
name.
It's
I'm
Uncle
sorry.
Ben.
Rest in peace. Ben. We love you.
There's a little bit of manipulation that happens on both sides. And I think that's politics in general,
Mhm.
right? But you have a lot of control and a lot of power at that position. And I can't even
Right.
say what I'd do in that position. The honest truth is,
Right.
I probably would want to do what I believe and so the people in those positions oftentimes run with what they believe and what they do. right?
Right.
And so I agree. I think the idea is that it just depends on the person in charge, and we as people tend to lean with the things that we believe and the foundations and the morals that we grew up with, right? The things that the environment that we were around. I think that's all too commonplace. I think what's happening now is that we're no longer allowing, we talk about that isolation, right? I was talking about isolation and pulling ourselves back and no longer having that open line of dialogue that the three of us are having right now.
Right.
When that doesn't happen, or there's not a place for that to continue to happen,
Yeah.
we pull further and further and further and further away. And then we're offended by everything everyone else says. That's in contradiction to what we believe.
Right.
And so I think that's where we're at now, is we're at a place where opinion is no longer a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I say that not as someone on one side or the other, because I oftentimes even find someone on the other side of the aisle have an opinion and I don't agree with it.
Right.
I may not always get offended by it, but we're finding our place getting shorter and shorter fused in that. And oftentimes our reaction is to eliminate that target.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily as take them out, but we're seeing things like people losing their jobs. Well, we no longer see things as in second chances. Right. And I think that having the ability to allow people to believe and think, and what we do is what the country was founded on, right? The idea that we have that freedom to believe and say, not always that we agree with what's being said.
There's a lot of countries out there. I mean, believe it or not, a lot of people don't know a lot about England and Britain, but they have a lot of for the longest time, very similar, design and structure, not 100%, but some similarities as far as wanting people to have their own thoughts and things like that. But again, they have their own media issues. They've had theirs, and we don't have a lot of time because we could do this with just about every country in the world.
Right.
But some of the biggest world powers, there's some similar attributes, right? And I love that you briefly kind of talked about, like, if you were in that position, right? And we're going to get into that a little more because that's a big piece, right? It's hard to analyze, like, what these guys that are all the way at the top, your NSAs, your CIAs, just the guys that are, even, believe it or not, as much as our fans out there don't know, our president doesn't have as much power as you think he does. He has some, absolutely, but there's definitely some government agencies that he may not even know what they're doing at the end of the day. But again, get into those things later. And Cody, as far as, what are your thoughts? What are your stance? You're a young man coming up in the world,
Right.
Fairly newly married,
Mm-hmm.
got a beautiful house and all that going on. You're a hardworking man. You pay your taxes, the whole works. And what are your thoughts? Government, inciting these things for their agenda, possibly controlling through media.
I think it's definitely a bad thing, but to put it simply, bad, right? No, but nothing's really changed. All throughout human history, I think that's just what us as humans have done, like, all the time, just trying to get the edge on the next human,
Right.
just so we can be better and we can survive.
Right.
It's just the same thing. You watch, like, the same history through, like, just everything, like the Roman Empire, or, like, Egypt or anything like that. Just literally, it's the same thing. Just people trying to get the edge on everybody else so they can do better. It's just power structures
Right.
that happen naturally all the time, and it's, unfortunately, ours happened in a little bit of a unique way. But
Sure.
it's still the
Sure.
same thing boiled down. So
Yeah. Well, as we, real quick, before we get into this, let's have a little fun real quick. So all of our fans out there, by now, we know that hundreds of millions, I don't even know what the number is, of people have seen the Avenger series, right? With Marvel, Avenger series, great movies. If you haven't, definitely check it out. But let's have some fun real quick. Out of all the Avengers, Andy, who's your favorite Avenger and why?
Superman. Oh,
wait. So
wrong
listen,
wrong one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And like we said, Andy's not always right. He thinks he is, but he's definitely not.
Definitely right on the favorite superhero. I don't know. If I had to think about it, I think everybody loves the Hulk. I love the Hulk. Right?
Really?
I'll be honest with you. I'd
Okay.
run through and smash
That's
some stuff.
such a, like,
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
such an out of left field character. I didn't even.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Give me
All
some
right.
give me some super strength and a reason to like smash a car and not be blamed for it. Oh, I'm so down.
So let me ask this even broader question before we get to Cody. Let me go even deeper. I like the Hulk, dude. I think the Hulk's great. I think he's like, when he's not the Hulk, he's smart, but when he's the Hulk, he's strong. Like, okay, best of both worlds. But let me ask this: in the entire Avenger universe, the movies in general, good, bad, the ugly, like, is the Hulk still number one, top rank?
For me,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I enjoy watching him the most. I understand that there's more depth to some other characters.
Yeah.
But
Totally get it.
Professor Hulk.
Oh, even better. Even better. The
Professor
hybrid.
Hulk.
The hybrid. Yes. Cody.
Oh, you like the hybrid one better?
No, I like again, as a guy that read comic books growing up,
Yeah.
like the comic books make a lot more sense than the movies do.
Right.
There's more to come, right? So you haven't seen like World War Hulk. This is coming, right? If it's in the next few phases,
Actually, yeah, I think
there's going to be
there's
a lot of depth
2022, yeah.
getting ready to come into the
Right,
Hulk,
right.
and so listen. I'm not a Marvel guy. I grew up on DC. Superman has
Yeah.
always been my favorite. Superman and Batman conflict, that whole thing. I dig that more.
Right.
However, I love the Marvel movies, and the comic feature that they gave the Hulk in this has been fantastic, right? Him
Perfect.
when he did what he does to Loki, fantastic. Like, I mean, to smash somebody around. So I say that in the sense that I enjoy watching that. Now,
So Andy secretly wants to grab a person by their ankles and slam them around. We got that.
listen,
Understood.
listen.
Understood.
I
So,
Message received.
as a
Yeah.
character, I like Doctor Strange, right?
Okay.
He's
All
an
right.
intellectual.
I
I
got
like
it.
I dig it. And then give me some frosty mage powers. I'm totally down. Right?
Got it.
Time travel.
Okay.
Okay.
Powers, beast, beating people around. Got it. All right. Cody, where you at?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on the Hulk train. I think that if I had to pick one, I'm a huge like Spider-Man fan. I
Okay.
think that Spider-Man
Alright.
is probably my favorite out of the bunch.
Alright.
There's just like I just love the Spidey set stuff. Like being able to like have that much awareness about
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
is insane, and then the strength it just complements it. It's insane.
So, I've analyzed the I've analyzed the Avenger.
That was the
movies,
Hulk smashing
yeah.
the spider.
I don't know. I think have they compared the strengths of them? I mean, Spider-Man's pretty strong.
I mean,
Listen.
it'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We should. There should be a simulation.
Yeah.
On this.
Comic books are definitely not conspiracy theories. They are fake, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways,
How dare you.
but
How dare
if
you?
we're looking at characters, and the reason I really wanted to bring this up is, and again, as we've said the name of the episode a few times, the reason I've named it that is, believe it or not, and I really hope that we don't lose a ton of followers from what I'm about to say, but I have a weird respect for Thanos. Yes, the ultimate villain in all the Avenger movies. Now, and let me just paint this picture why. Okay, and this is where we're going to get into discussion, and I need you guys to everybody out there that's listening, just broaden your perspective of thinking for just a moment. Okay, here's this man at this point. You see him; he's conquering. Yes, he's killing people. That part's not cool, not okay. He's just going around, just dominating people. He's trying to get these gems, put it in his glove, right, so that he can have a power to dissipate half the universe's population. Right. Now, when you look at it on the surface, yes, total evil, total bad, 100%. Okay. But the question and point is, he depicts the fact that he was a little boy on a planet. This planet depleted its resources so much that it destroyed itself. He watched people he loved die. So he's growing up with this, what I'll call PTSD, and he goes on to have just a desire, a drive, an ambition to say, I'm going to stop that, make sure it doesn't happen. And he doesn't, he even says,
Well, in the movie, he tries.
Yeah.
And his society, his elites in his society stops him and says no.
right,
And then he watches what happens.
right. And so he grows to power. He's now one of the most powerful people in the universe per the movies, right? And so here he is with all this power, and he goes and he gets the gauntlet, gets the gems, and he even says, like, it's a random selection, right? He didn't go and I'm going to pick this class or I'm going to pick this class. He just says, no matter what, I got to do this. And then he does it. And then you go to the, and if you guys, hey, real quick, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the movies, so maybe skip forward 10 seconds real quick. But you see him in the last movie on a planet by himself farming. I mean, if you really analyze that, does that really depict of what a massive warlord would do? No, most warlords would just keep pillaging and plundering and killing. No, he's done. He did his thing. He believes what he did was right, truly in his own mind, and now he's just chilling, right? He's chilling. So again, I know my fans, probably not my fans anymore. They're now all Andys. I get it, but everybody's
So do
like,
I.
Hulk smash, and everybody's like, yeah, Cody loves Spider-Man. Aaron loves Thanos. Listen, I love the Avengers. Great movie. It's not real, as we said, but I just want to pose this question to you guys. Thoughts on what I'm about to say? Okay. Overpopulation. If we, as a humankind, are threatening the very planet we live on by overconsuming and overpopulating, and it's growing, ever growing by the number of people inhabiting the earth, right? The earth as a whole. Do you see this, we don't talk about ways to deal with it or anything like that, just this particular scenario, this issue, this concern, if this is truly transpiring, what are your thoughts? Is this something, how do you feel about that? If I said to you, Andy, we're overpopulating the heck out of the earth, our resources are depleting immensely day by day, food, water, the whole works, it is just going, and your family is going to starve, thirst, and they're going to perish because of it. How do you feel?
Well, I mean, with the actual facts, right? If we had the research and we had the facts and we
Mhm.
were able to prove those
Right.
things, I
Right.
think you'd have to address it. How do you address it? I don't know. I think that there's rationing and doing what you need to do.
Okay.
Um,
Good.
I,
Yeah.
I don't believe in cutting half of the population out. Let's just put
I
that
just-
out there. But I'm also one of those naysayers that says a lot of what is being described in that scenario isn't really happening.
Okay. All right. Cody?
I like this question
I-
because what you're asking, it's a moral dilemma, is what you're asking. I think you're asking for my moral answer. You're asking for the morality in which I believe.
If your beautiful wife was,
Right,
if you're as a man,
Right.
now married,
right,
and your family, your parents, everybody you love,
Yeah.
was now faced with perishing. That's all. Was faced with perishing because we are depleting the resources that our human body needs.
hmm
End of story.
Right.
Like, especially water. Let's just,
Yeah.
without water, like, we can go days without food. They know that.
Right.
You cannot go days without water.
Right.
Your body needs fluid. So if your family, and just take you out of it for a picture, just look at your lovely wife, look at your parents, people you love, your siblings. If they are faced with death because of overpopulation causing resources to diminish at a rapid rate, how do you feel?
I mean, so are you asking me like how would I feel if that were the case, or how do you think that I would handle it? I guess
Well,
would I be for taking out half of the population or against?
And I think
Is that
we'll get
what
in.
you're asking?
We'll get in a little deeper into that as we move on and look at those things. But just yes, I guess the point is I'm trying to get you to analyze how in this fictional stance of Thanos,
if in
how he
Thanos'
felt.
shoes, I see. Okay,
But
yeah.
now be it real here in America, in the U.S., in the Earth. We're not talking about some space guy from
If
another
you were
planet.
dealt with the same scenario, how would
Today,
you feel about
right now, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey,
Mhm.
1 year from now, all resources are gone, and you and your family are going to starve, and you're going to perish because there's no water." What is your
Not
feelings
enough
behind that?
because of the current population.
Because of the
Is that what you're saying?
overpopulation
Because
and
of
the
overpopulation.
constant increase of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be awful, but I don't think that morally it would justify genocide.
Okay.
Just because of where my moral compass comes
Right.
from. I
Of
mean,
course.
it depends on who you ask, I think, but in the instance of myself,
There's 2 points to think
Yeah.
about on Thanos.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it to be right.
Right.
He believes it to be a necessity.
Correct.
Okay. So you can see it when he's farming, like the weight of it is on him.
Right.
So he knows what he did
Was-
is wrong,
right.
but-
Especially having to,
understands that someone has to make that decision. And that's he's making that decision.
very important that it's so important that you say that. It's very important because it's going to be, again, it's going to bring us a wider spectrum of thought. Because yes, as Cody put it, morally not right. We all know that. But again, he was put into a position that he felt that if he didn't do it, so again, morally right or wrong, if you didn't do something, if you didn't intercede, and let's just say you were the only one that could, your perception, and it's being brought to you, hey, Cody, you're the only one that can intercede on this. You have to make a choice to do something. And if you don't, everybody, including everyone you love, is gone. That I just want you to think about that. So you said there's 2 points. So there's the 1 point. Okay, we know the necessity versus the moral stance.
Second point is his view of what was happening was narrow, and he expanded it to broad based on his circumstance. Right.
Correct.
So it hit him at home.
Yep.
And because it hit him at home, he felt that it was necessary to influence that feeling that he was impacted based on what happened to his planet to everyone. Earth wasn't in the same situation, or some of the other planets may not have been in the same situation that his was. Right. But he felt that they were all going in that direction. And so
inevitably it was his thought, right?
It was his thought.
One way or another, whether it's tomorrow, 1,000 years, 100 years, a million.
He was imposing the justice that he felt was an injustice on his own planet.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So while you think about that for a minute, I just want to drop something on you guys. Okay. There's an organization called the Global Footprint Network. They believed that as of July 29th, 2019, that we would have consumed all of 2019's allotted supply of resources. And in turn, as the rest of 2019 went on, we were already dipping into 2020's. To back that up, also, in the 1970s, an evolutionary biologist, Dr. Ben Phillips in the University of Melbourne, stated that the technological innovation that was transpiring, so everything from farms becoming more advanced, being able to grow more food, being able, because there's a certain amount of crop that, a certain amount of the land can only produce so much before you have to do certain things to it to make it grow more. The earth is only designed in such a way, so they bring in technological advances to increase that, okay? He said it increased our ability to obtain and sustain resources. However, he also stated that this is 1970s, this has only delayed us reaching a global crisis. 1970s, and then you fast forward again back to the Global Footprint Network, who stated in July 2019, based on calculations and everything else, that we have pushed the earth to a brink, that we have consumed our resources for that year, because through their calculations, they say, okay, every year's given X amount of resources, the Earth's, through its population and so on and so forth, calculating how much the Earth grows, meaning population-wise. And it says, and they did this large amounts of calculation statistics that then say we consumed all of 2019 by July 29th. Okay, so by the end of July, that left all of 2019 still going. It's not like we just stopped eating. We're like, all right, well, guess what, guys? We did 2019. I need you guys not to eat until January, or drink water for that matter, right? No, we kept consuming. So their statistics and their studies state we then started coming into 2020s and so on and so forth. And so the snowball begins. So here we are. As you said, you talked about, evidence and things like that. And, here's research scientists, again, back to the 1970s, saying, hey, great technological advances. It'll keep us going, but it's only delaying a global crisis. And this was 50 years before the Global Footprint Network said what they said. So 50 years prior, he even says it's only delaying a global crisis. And then the Global Footprint comes out saying, hey, we've calculated it by mid-July or by mid-year. Resources for that year depleted. Now we're dipping in the next year. Well, what happened? What about mid-June or mid-2020? Are we into 2021? Are we deeper into 2021? And so on and so forth. So with that now we've got a little bit of research behind it. We've got some scientists that do research this, do study it heavily. I mean, literally all they do is watch food sources and water sources. That's all they do, right? I mean, we have other resources, of course, your oils, your minerals, down to money and things like that. Different resources that fluctuate, get depleted, so on and so forth. But our main resources, food and water. Okay. So now back to it. Now we're back to looking at, okay, here we go. A little bit of science showing this is possibly taking place. Okay. So now it makes it a little more real, right? I don't have 100 scientists. I don't know. I'm not the scientist. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I do not have a PhD or even a master's degree, but
I do know how to use Google.
yes, yeah, I did. We did research, did do some research, and this Global Footprint Network is a legit. It is a worldwide legit science organization.
It wraps around global warming, right? A lot of this is overpopulation, resources thinning out. The more we do, the higher our carbon footprint is, and it ties into global warming. I've got my own opinion on global warming. That's not really where we're at right now, but the idea of we're destroying the earth. If we deplete all the resources, that's not destroying the earth. It destroys people, right? If we eat all of our resources and we have no more resources to live, we destroy ourselves. But we're not destroying the earth. So this concept of, in Thanos' idea, they had tapped all their resources, their carbon footprint had got pretty big, and their ozone layer on their planet was ceasing to exist.
Right.
And it ended up imploding.
Yeah. And again, he's just a fictional depiction of.
Yeah, but it's fictional. But if we're talking about it, even back to the 1970s, global warming has been a thing. Climate change has been a thing.
Right. But even if you take out the global warming, because I know there's so many people that, yes, the polar ice caps are melting, and then they show other pictures of them, and they're all of a sudden they're frozen again.
It's timelines, right?
It's all these different things
from the 70s to the 90s.
But we do know agriculturally, if you grow a plant can only produce so much so fast. And then when you force it to grow more faster, you're then depleting its overall life expectancy. And then you have to grow more, and you have to do all these different things to the soil. These guys are taking all this into the calculation. Like I read their multi-page article when they sent this out, and it's that they took everything into effect. They took technology. They took, spraying chemicals on plants to make them grow faster, GMOs, all these different things that whether people believe them or not, we got a friend out there that just absolutely believes it. Every ounce of food, we love them. But anyway, so I digress. It's another day for another topic, but they took all of this into effect. Genetically modifying plants to grow more, grow thicker, but it is not, and that's, again, back to what Dr. Ben Phillips says, great technological advances, but it's only sustaining and delaying a global crisis. The global crisis is not destroying the earth, as Andy put it. The global crisis at this point is, are we going to deplete our most important resources and in turn destroying ourselves? And that's really what the discussion here is, right? Because the biggest piece to the quote-unquote Thanos effect is, though, as Andy puts it, the planet and ozone layers and all that, but I'm really pushing the Thanos effect more back onto overpopulation, right? If we are overpopulating, and in turn, we have to feed everybody, and we don't have the resources to continue to do so for long periods of time, there really becomes more of a necessity as opposed to, as Cody put it, a moral stance, right? I just want that to be thought about for a minute as I'm going to go into this piece, and I touch on it jokingly because we don't know if there is some world powers. Let's first talk about that. Andy, what is your thoughts on the potential of there being some, we'll call it, a men's group for a second. Group. Yes. Let's say there's a men's group. Maybe it's a women's group. Maybe it's mixed. I don't know. But maybe there's some individuals, they gather around a circle table with dim lighting and ominous sounds in the background, and they go, so how do we wipe out half the world? But seriously, what is your thoughts on some group of individuals at the top, not the top of the U.S., not the top of Britain or Russia, but literally at the top of the world, above the UN, above them all.
I think before most recent years, I'd have told you that you were flying a kite.
I like kites. They're fun.
I don't know, right? I
Yeah.
tend to be more skeptical, right? And the
Right.
idea that, we all kind of control our own destinies. We have people in positions of power that make things, laws, and stuff like that we may not agree with.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I control my own destiny, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I believe in when it comes to freedom and liberty. Now,
Right.
I have the exclusive benefit of living here in this country where liberty and freedom is a thing.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the same for everyone else, but do I believe that there are a group of elites that at least attempt to do those things? I think it'd be foolish to say no. I think that it's possible. And I think that money in itself can be used for good, and I think it can also be used for evil. And what I
Right.
mean by that is that it could be, if you're in a place of power and money's no longer a thing,
Yeah.
manipulation is I think it's just a byproduct. I
Right.
think it can be, at least. And so, yes, part of me wants to believe it, right? We don't use the term. I use that very, very skeptical, but the
I know.
concept of Illuminati,
Right.
The concept
Yeah.
of Freemasons, the concept of all
Yeah.
these things that
What about Yale's Skull Society? I mean, they found that to be real.
I don't know much about it, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, when
It's like this underground fraternity that they were like raising up, like world leaders to the 10 power. Like, I mean, at first it was a big, again, conspiracy theory, right?
Right.
Like no, come on, Yale, like the one of the top in the world, and then they find out it's got this underground society called, the Skull and Bones or something like that.
I made a comment to Cody.
Yeah.
In March of last year,
Mm-hmm.
we were working in the garage.
Yeah.
At the house,
Right,
because we
right.
had to work from home.
Yeah, everybody.
And I remember looking at him going, "Man, I can't wait 2 weeks for this thing to be over." And Cody goes, "It ain't gonna be over." I said,
Yeah.
It's gonna be over.
I love it.
Like, this is ridiculous. This is gonna be over. Listen, we all have common sense. Common sense says that we're gonna survive and everything's gonna be fine. People get sick and stuff happens.
Cody's nickname is Nostradamus, by the way.
But that was the conversation in my mind, right? And Cody looks at me and he goes, "Nah, it ain't gonna happen." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"You're crazy."
And
Well,
lo and behold.
I might be a little crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing, believe it or not, right? Everybody has their own opinion on things. Is it's hard for me to sit, listen to the news, podcasts, go outside, go to Walmart,
Yeah.
and see how people react to one another.
Right.
Opinions. If I put a T-shirt on that's got a red shirt with white text, or I wear a blue shirt and it's got the red and white Biden and Harris, both sides of the aisle react to those things in a certain way. It's hard for me to believe that there's not someone above that's influencing and manipulating those things.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard.
It
When you see riots
no evidence for sure. We have no clue,
and
by
bricks
the way.
and bricks show up.
Yeah.
Did that really happen? I wasn't there.
Who knows?
The city we worked in,
Right.
it was happening.
Yeah.
We got to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
There were flyers, right, where people were getting paid to go riot. So I know that it happens. I don't know. I'm not,
But who's inciting? Why is inciting? I mean, that's the problem, right?
Listen,
It could be
it could be a
just
number of things.
It could just be some random organization that has no power. They just get a kick out of doing whatever they do, right?
100% believe that we're living out a movie.
Yeah.
We're 100% living on a movie. The problem with that is that now
Coming
movies
soon.
are going to be harder to write and direct because nobody wants to watch their real life acted out on screen.
So, Cody, I mean, Illuminati, Freemasons, Skull and Bones. By the way, I love Thanos. Again, just his character in the movies, not for what he did. Just the idea of him, and he's kind of cool looking the way they made him look in the movie. And the comic books, he's kind of cool too. So for conversation points, we're just going to wrap all these groups, and I'm just going to call them the Thanos societies, right? Or society, right? For this particular episode. So your thoughts. What is your thoughts on a potential quote unquote, as I've put it myself, on a Thanos society type?
When you say that, you're talking about, like you said, Skull and Bones, Freemasons, Illuminati.
Yeah, it's just
all
these things that have been around
secret
a long time, and
Yeah.
you just hear about them. There's no proof. somebody said that once Beyonce did a show and she put up some triangle. I don't.
Oh,
dude,
I've seen that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what is that like? Maybe she's just throwing maybe that's like maybe she's got a family member that likes triangles. Maybe it means some like unity thing within her family. I don't know.
No way.
But hey, drop it on me. Let's hear it.
No, I've watched a lot of that Illuminati stuff.
Yeah.
I've done some like deep YouTube investigations
Okay.
on the Freemason stuff.
All right.
And there's a lot of stuff out there.
Mhm.
Like a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
for a secret society to have a lot of like stuff out there already, I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot more. I think that's the tip of the iceberg, if you will.
Right.
I think there is a whole lot of stuff that happens in there that we're just seeing.
There's a lot
the
of stuff
things
about
that-
zombies and aliens too, but I mean that's for another show.
Oh yeah.
Right?
And we haven't even talked about like Scientology yet.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, I was
Dude.
just-
Oh my gosh,
We'll get-
dude.
Well, yeah,
We should have a whole episode
Whoa.
on Scientology. I love some Scientology talk, dude.
There's a great Netflix movie out, and there's another show.
Have you watched? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great
Yeah,
stuff.
rabbit trail.
But on this, right? So just so you've done some research yourself.
Yeah.
You've looked into it.
Mhm.
Sounds like you have a perception, a stance,
Right.
and I'm just curious, like where with these societies that how they've been around a long time. They have a lot of control, a lot of power. I'm guessing tons of money, more money than we know what to do with. I don't
Yeah.
even what's above trillion. Like is it even? I'm not sure.
Oh, after trillion,
Quintillion?
it's
Okay,
it's
quintillion.
quintillion, and then sextillion.
So I'm guessing
Yes.
it's like wait, they got more money than that, right?
yeah.
Right?
Oh,
We're just,
I mean, they have
like-
like I mean, like, how do you?
yeah, it's
yeah.
unfathomable.
Well, I don't even
amount
know
of
if
money.
there's that much like currency, because at that point, then you have to really like
I'm just trying to figure out how to pay
reevaluate.
$8 a gallon for gas. But hey, let's do this. Whatever. Let's go.
Walk.
Yes.
I think there's one point. There's a point of so much wealth where like actual currency kind
Yeah.
of transcends into actual like other things that you can trade,
Right.
such
Right.
as like personal
Bitcoin?
favors. Oh well, cryptocurrency, sure. Yeah, but yeah, I'm talking
Personal
about like
favors?
actual favors or things of
I'm not really sure where we're going with the personal favors thing, but hey,
sexual favors.
yes, let's.
No,
It's
one of the
trading
many.
in whole forms of different things.
Right.
I'm thinking about taking them quilting, but anyway, so societies, these Illuminatis.
Yeah.
Again, I just want to coin them the Thanos Society
Yeah.
because there's so many different ones.
Yeah.
Like you hear different names: Freemasons, Illuminati, Skull and Bones. They may be all the same people. I
Mhm.
don't know. I don't know enough. Sounds like you've.
I'm
done
sure
research.
I'm sure there's a few people who kind of like have a Venn diagram of themselves in certain
Yeah,
areas,
right,
but
right.
maybe not
So,
all of them.
but-
So,
But where is your head on these guys, on these individuals, men, women, whatever they are?
I think that they totally exist and
Okay.
that they actually have a lot of power just because of how many people are most likely associated with them.
Right.
I mean, because it's just powerful people just in a group, and that in itself
Money
creates
talks.
power.
Right,
Yeah.
but
Money talks. You have influence,
but
right?
you would have to have, in order to say, if these exist, again, you would literally, we're talking the entire planet. They have some kind of pull, some kind of control over every government, every world leader, right? Because if you have that much power and money, and if even one of them stepped out of line, even Putin's got mass power, right? Now, granted, they struggle with their own resources and can't feed their own people, but heck, military power and army and things like that. If they felt he was stepping out of line, again, you're that powerful, they'd just shut him down. Like he'd be gone already, right? Same thing with China, things like that. So these guys must, if they exist, as a lot of people believe they do, they would have literally they would be the most powerful people on the planet, right? I mean, that's the idea behind it, correct?
Yeah.
So
well, yeah.
is that your,
Well, I mean, I'm not saying like that, that I know for a fact Joe
Sure.
Biden or Kamala Harris
Yeah,
are
yeah.
are in the Illuminati. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think there may be.
I heard Biden change his name to Brandon. Is that true?
Yeah, I heard that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
And a lot of people are
Mhm.
actually like super stoked about his presidency.
They're
now.
cheering
Yeah,
him
yeah.
on.
They're cheering him on
Yeah.
everything I look at.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you're not. I mean, I get it. You're not calling the president or our personal cabinet the Illuminati,
Right.
but you believe possibly this organization, this
The Thanos Society.
Thanos Society,
Right.
has some level of existence.
Yes. Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
all right. So, with that being said, I want to come back and just pose one more quick question. I just want your quick thoughts, quick answers. It kind of stems back to something how I asked you guys if you guys were put in a situation, if it was your family, so on and so forth. Okay. if you're this powerful Thanos society, and it exists, and you're sitting around this table, stroking your cat, whatever it is you're doing, and you are presented with facts, maybe facts that haven't reached the American people, maybe stuff deeper than what the Global Footprint Network released, maybe much deeper than that. You're literally presented with documents that show true hard fact that the most important resources, food and water, are quickly being depleted. You're the most powerful people in the world. You're presented with that, and you're told, hey, do something about it. Now, again, same questions I similarly asked you before about if it was you, your family, so on and so forth. But now you are in this society. And that's why I like kind of what you said earlier, Andy. You're like, hey, if I was one of these, if I was some powerful individual, you just didn't know, right? If you were sitting at that round table and you were presented with these documents, these facts, hey, Earth, food, and water is about to be depleted, which includes your food and water. There ain't no spaceships. There ain't nothing that's going to take you away. You have a decision and a choice to make. And remember, these people are in power. They're in power because we as human beings exist. We go to work. We pay taxes. All the planet does what it does. Everybody just dies off. They don't have any power anymore because there's no one to have power over. And even then, they're presented with the same death, same possible perishing that we would face. Maybe not at the same rate because they would just hoard resources until they deplete. But it wouldn't matter. They have to do something. And they don't want to get rid of everybody because then again, no power, right? They still want their power. If you got power, you want to keep your power. What do you do? Andy, quickly, where you at? How do you feel? You're the Thanos Society. You're the man with the cat, stroking it.
I think that they're okay. Taking a step back a second,
Yeah.
right? Because I think these are two branched out conversations.
Okay.
I don't know that I believe that there's one single group of individuals
Right.
that is influencing every government in the world.
But if there is,
but I mean,
we don't know fact or fiction.
lot of
No,
what
there's
we're
like three
going
of them.
a lot of what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, we just went over them.
Because at the end of the
Just combine them
day,
into one.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're talking about a rational line of thinking with irrational people. Because if irrational people would create a society and then somehow agree, these are people that are irrational. They're not agreeing with one another. They're on the opposite spectrum of one another, agreeing on how to handle things.
They're all part of the same golf club, man. They hang out.
I'm sure they hate each other.
Yeah,
They all
hate
drink baby blood.
Oh,
They all have taken the oath.
Too soon.
Yes, yeah. That's episode 6.
I think
Whoa.
if we
Nice
pull
number.
it back to individual, I'm gonna go like nationalism, patriotism, right? The idea of individual countries, right? How would Russia handle this? How would China handle this? How would the United States handle this? Right.
China handles it by blowing everybody up.
Wow.
Just dropping nukes on everybody.
I'm not going to specifically target China. I'm not going to specifically target China, but communism.
But again, back to
the idea that we provide everything for everyone. If everyone retires at a certain age and your workforce is going off and everybody's getting too old, and you as a society in a not a republic, right? The communism, you have to support those people.
Right.
At some point, you can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about resources drying up, right? And so it's not a stretch to believe that leaders in power can go, we need less people.
But again, if you've already put into all different forms of play, which we'll potentially talk about here in a minute, and none of it worked, and now you're presented with some documents that said, all right, this is it. The end zone's right there. End game. You have 3 years to fix it. And this is what you have to do. Statistically, this is what you have to do. Here's the documents. You have to eliminate X amount of people off this planet in order to slow down the consumption of food and water. And you're presented with that. Morally, and back to, as you put it, a necessity at this point.
Well, I think you're backing me into a corner there, right?
Well, yeah.
I think the people that are offering I think the people that are offering up that solution are the elites, not scientists coming to them and saying this.
Well,
I think scientists, their fact is to prove the fact. And the fact is we're having too many people. We have too many less resources.
Right.
Now you have to figure out how to handle it. Science is there to prove That's the only thing science can do
That's
is
it.
proof.
And that's what the science are
Right?
doing.
So
Scientists
the
are bringing
elite-
them the, hey,
listen,
hey,
if I'm an elite-
yeah,
Right?
What are you gonna
Morals
do?
aside,
Right.
listen,
What are you doing?
self-serving, right?
Yes.
Self-serving.
Hey,
I'm
truth.
stacking boxes as high as I can.
There we go.
Hey, the man in
And-
charge tells me what to do. I say yes,
Listen.
sir.
Handle
You know,
it. Handle it.
Handle
What do you
it.
do?
Yes,
What do
sir.
you? Honestly, if I'm a person in that position,
Yes.
now, assuming that I, as myself and who I am, that's probably why I'll never be in that position. But I myself could never see myself doing that.
Right.
It's against my
Right.
nature. It's against what I believe. I do believe in absolute moral, or is it moral rights? Like, or not morals?
Right.
What do they call it? Back and forth.
Right.
I firmly believe that I would stick to what my beliefs are. These
Right.
people have sold their soul in a sense
Yeah.
to get themselves to that position to where they only care about one thing,
Right.
right? And that
Well-
one thing is themselves and power.
I'm
Power can come from not having people as well. Now,
I'm not-
understanding that
I'm not saying the Catholic Church is going to name these people saints,
right,
but
if
you know,
I agree with you that
know?
if everybody was to die off and that one individual was left, they
Right.
would have no power.
none.
Right?
Right.
There would be an initial I survived because of who I am and the power that I had, but that power would diminish. So
Right.
they do want people around.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's the
I
point.
agree.
There's some level of narcissism behind them.
100%.
So they have to keep, as we are probably to them, even the wealthiest billionaires in this country would still be pawns to them. They would still be
A theory,
peasants.
a
right?
theory that I had that would have made the movie more intriguing
Okay.
is that if there was just a line or a sentence in the movie where Thanos was under the impression that he was up for grabs too.
Okay.
And that when he flicked his wrist, that he was possibly flipping a coin at 50-50.
And
that to me would have been more
that's-
humanizing.
right, but that's
Which
the
doesn't make-
whole principle. You're right, 100%. I'm not going to disagree with
He
you.
probably
but,
would have been seen less a villain.
I agree.
Not that I agree with what his outcome was,
if
but
the percent chance, if he was like, hey, it's a 50-50 chance that you disappear, and I am also included in that number, I'm just going to snap my finger and boom. It wouldn't, first off, probably wouldn't have made for a great movie, but you wouldn't have had Thor cutting people's heads off and all that stuff.
listen,
but at the
how
end
it
of
should
the
have
day-
ended,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
But
I get it.
But that's the point here, is these people, if they do exist, it doesn't matter that
But
they're
the
super
narcissism,
narcissism.
listen, the narcissism behind it all
Yeah.
shows that people making that decision are self-serving.
Always.
At the end of the day,
Always.
it's about preserving what I have and what life I'm going to live.
But
not about the people you're eliminating.
But a big chunk of the population is what they have, and that's how they see it. So no matter what, at the end of the day, it's either the whole population wipes out and potentially them, or they wipe out a chunk of it, save the whoever they save, so that they still feel powerful. And they're not going to come out, by the way. If this society is real and they have this facts, it's not like they're just going to come out tomorrow on national news and be like, hey, by the way, we're real. Thanos Society is a real thing. Aaron, Andy, and Cody, we heard you guys, and by the way, Earth's about to die. So it just isn't going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen, which will get us into here in a second. But I just want Cody to touch really fast. Same thing. Thanos Society's real. You're part of it. You're sitting at that table. You're narcissism. You love the power you have. You also don't want to perish because there's no food or water. Two pieces there, self-serving, whatever it may be. Where are you at? I mean, Andy self-served.
Well, yeah. I mean,
It's hard not to, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, because with the characteristics, that you painted there. Yeah, I think that that's really, if you've made it to that point, they know that you have to make that decision because they know you.
Well, and like I
You
said,
know?
you're painting that picture pretty clear, right? Walking Dead, right? There's an
Right.
episode where they and she spares someone's life, and I'm like, that would never happen.
Yeah.
You tell me that zombies are going over the earth and the people that are left are all crap. They're all attacking me. My family's what matters. Everyone else is getting a hole in the head, right? So you kind of throw that stuff out the window when the picture that is painted is very narrow.
End of story, right? There's going to be some level of self-preservation. We are human beings, fight or flight, right? Yeah. And so, real quick, some examples of what some of the other countries have done over the world. In 1974, many critics came to the UN and just spoke out heavily against population control, saying it's just immoral to do any form of population control, let the world deal with it, so on and so forth. At that same conference, India's health minister, Karen Singh, at that time declared that development is the best contraceptive. Okay, interesting. But a year later, the government that he presided over one of the most notorious episodes in the history of population control. The Indian premier, Indira Gandhi's son, used the state of emergency due to the allegations of corruption that threatened the government to introduce a radical pop culture targeted at the poor, right? During this 2 years, 8 million men were sterilized. Okay, so they targeted the poor, they targeted men, and they sterilized over a 2-year period 8 million men. Okay, this has gone down again to be one of the most notorious known forms of population control. This was in 1974 through 76 and through that. A little bit more well known. Fast forward a little bit, about 10 years. China's one-child policy. Just about everybody across the world knows about it, and a lot of people are like, "Well, yeah, China's overpopulated. Make one child." It is said to prevented over 400 million births since it was put into place in 1983. Still going, by the way.
Isn't it just females or more than one female or something like that?
Correct. Which, yeah. So again, in 1983 alone, more than 60 million women and 4 million men were sterilized, and 14 million women received forced abortions. Okay, 14 million women were told you have to abort your child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this program went on to later allow 2 children as long as one is a boy, knowing the need for male labor. That was the premise, right? Like, we need male labor. So if everybody's popping out girls, we got to let them try at least one more time and in hopes to get a boy, right? The problem that then did was when you started coming into sonography and being able to tell the sex at birth or before birth, they would tell, "Hey, you're having another girl. Oh, abort it." Okay, so now just exponential amount of kids were aborted because they weren't boys. Then one of the going on to, again, just more genocide, more large amounts of people being killed off. One of the craziest times in history, World War II, we all know. Hitler killed a ton of Jewish people in gas chambers. Millions of people, right? Again, back to, if there is this world power above all these leaders, including Hitler, including Stalin, including all these people, just think that if they've been around forever, they knew that overpopulating over a certain period of time, they had to start doing things, right? So there's people that believe that even wars were forcibly incited so that millions would die one way or another to control population. Keeping in mind, other than the Iraqi war of the 90s and different conflicts and things like that, and even after 9/11, we have not had a massive world war, right? So populations keep growing, and none of the other countries other than China keep doing their one-child policy really hasn't implemented anything. Okay, now to America. All right, real quick. And this particular one was first just originally targeted at African American, and I believe it was men specifically, but the Tuskegee study in the 1930s, they gave syphilis to a bunch of African American men, said, "Hey, we're going to treat you," and basically treated them with placebos, and they perished, right? Though it did not kill some large amount of people, what could be possibly stinted from, hypothetically, would be the potential that you can introduce something to an individual, say, "Hey, we're going to treat it," and then let it die off and see if they'll actually, I'm just going to put it loosely, fall for it, right? I mean, that's what it showed. This was 1930, right? We're talking 90 years ago. 90 years ago, right? Again, just a single basic attempt at maybe some level of eradication. Now, I'm going to touch on what probably a lot of people believe is some level of an elephant in the room, and that there are a lot, and you can Google this, there are a lot of people, a lot of conspiracy theorists, because of how advanced this particular virus that I'm about to talk about is. And it's not the one, I know everybody's like, "He's going to say COVID." Nope, we're not there yet. Listen, This particular virus, it enters and there's even some scientists that were discredited that, again, you can Google them. Some scientists that were discredited by also chiming in on this belief that this particular virus was created in a lab. Okay. And this one, I want to have you guys touch on this one because this one's a big one. This is a big conspiracy theory. A ton of people believe this. That this particular virus was created in a lab. This virus enters the human body and at first lays dormant. And while it's laying dormant, it's actually growing in strength. It grows in strength. And then, if not caught, it eventually mutates into a much stronger version, in a sense, and depletes the human immune system to the point where even the common cold kills you. Now, the scientists that spoke out and were super discredited, barred out of their own professions, said that it was designed to spread in a way that all human beings take part in, right? And this virus I'm speaking about, 39 people have died since having it.
39 million?
39 million, excuse me, 39 million.
Yeah.
39 million, that's
Oh,
deadly.
Yeah.
39 million people have died since having it. Now, granted, in the last 20 years, there's been exponential advances to fight it. So a big chunk of that 39 million was in the initial time frame. So they kill. I mean, it knocked out a lot of people. The virus I'm speaking of is HIV. Okay, very, very strong, very, very powerful, very, very deadly. I mean, I remember seeing this thing. They showed it under a microscope. It basically cloned cells, and that's how it hit. Right? It cloned itself, and it was like, what the heck? Like, they showed it. It was crazy. It looked like other cells, and then it started eating away at white blood cells, right? And your white blood cells, by the way, if you guys don't know out there, that's a big chunk and a big piece of your immune system, all right? So it eats away at your blood cell or your white blood cells, and then when your white blood cells drop to a certain level, you then are now in full-blown AIDS, and that's really the deadly one, right? They're one and the same thing. It's just that where your T cells, wherever your T cell count is what deciphers whether you have HIV or AIDS, right?
Right.
So we also know a famous basketball player, Magic Johnson. He got it in the early years, back in the 80s, and he was like 32 years old. And today, you can't even tell. Like, he's super healthy, and he's like in his 60s, and so there's a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, they built this thing in the lab. They already had the antivirus for it. And if you had money and power, you weren't dying from it, right? Again, total conspiracy theories. But keep in mind something. The mass number of that 39 million was constituted as lower class.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, it was in the early 90s, if I recall, that this became a really big thing in pop culture, in the news and where it was going. I think it was commonplace for you to know someone that had HIV, at least HIV. I didn't know very many that had AIDS. There was a few that I did that I think passed. But the reality is that it was common. Like you knew someone or heard of someone or had the risk of getting it.
Right.
You're right. It seemed very targeted in the way that it rolled out.
Right.
Not that it was intentional, but that it would go after
look
poverty.
At the numbers.
It would.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Right.
It's crazy.
But I mean, it was after a specific type. It felt like a type of person or lower income or people that just didn't have the ability. I don't know. So honestly, I don't know. I think before most common, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Right. Let's put that out there. I'm one of those guys that seemed a little bit more stoic, kind of like the type of guy that is skeptical of everything.
Yeah.
And by meaning the skeptical of everything is that I don't usually give a lot of, leash to these types of ideas that someone is behind all of this.
Yeah.
A lot of that's changed in more recent days, right? Like having this conversation, being on this podcast has a lot to do with just opening the dialogue on the fact that there may there might possibly be something there. So I haven't done the research on it. I really don't know. I don't have anything to say on it. But if I'm comparing it to what's happening today, it would feel more intentional in the sense to thin population as opposed to, and what could be happening right now could also be the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we would talk about where it started, Wuhan. We know it came from that kind of thing.
Definitely. That's.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have enough of a concrete standing
to
stand on and go, yeah, that's what's happening.
Well,
I think that's what's happening now.
And
I don't know if it's the thin population, but I think it is about manipulation. I think maybe originally it was when it was released. Keep in mind, China has had viruses over the years a dozen times. Right. I mean, early 2000s, I remember watching on the news China wearing masks like we do right now.
Of course.
Right. And going, that's crazy. Why are they wearing masks?
Yeah.
So this isn't the first thing to come out of China. And I'm not blaming China.
No, well, it's
way,
also the most
reality
populated place in the world.
Right,
I mean, India and China are massive, which is why I brought up these two, right? Most populated places in the world.
It's not a stretch to think that as a possibility. And the fact is that all these were created with the intent of being created. They were created in a lab. Something happened. They got out. Swine flu, all these things. And they kill off a slew of the population worldwide, China specifically. It's not a stretch to say that that's what's happening. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what Cody's thoughts are, but like the reality is, in my mind, I think there's a good bet that it was intentional.
Where you at with HIV?
Not that my age may be showing with this one a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I only am 25, and it is 2021.
It was like pretty much cured by the time. Yeah. Cody came alive. He's like, hey,
I was like, AIDS. Oh,
form
that's
of
like
cold, right? Or flu?
Last year? I don't know. So no, I mean, obviously, I haven't done like a lot. I don't know a whole lot about this one.
Yeah,
I mean, the books I read in school didn't really have it.
It was hard in the 80s and 90s.
Right. Yeah. But I think knowing what I know now, I think I'm on the fence. Yeah. Is probably the best way to describe this one because it's believable that it's possible. Just like how Rona, was made in a lab, or how swine flu or whatever. Just because of these other ones, Right. But I mean, but here's my other thought on that is that if it's for population control, they're doing a crap job at it because. 39 million sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, over the course of so many years, with a population of 7 billion on the planet, it's just...
The one thing you can't equate, no matter what you do, because every single person's human body is different because our DNA is all different. At the end of the day, the one thing you cannot calculate is the human body resilience. And I will close
Not without
up a
testing.
Little bit. Right.
Not without testing.
Right.
Let's be clear on that.
So
that's why we have testing.
So and so you're right. So who knows? Who knows if HIV was created by nature or in a lab? Who knows, right? We do not know. Nobody knows. If we do, it would be all over the place.
Or by a pharmaceutical company that wanted to make a bunch of money off the medicine.
And again, whole another episode. But there's other things that would lead people to believe that there's, again, a society possibly, with their belief that they have a responsibility to control world population. And unfortunately, there's always going to be some look at the lower class statistically. And again, this is just statistics that, it tends to be that when you start looking at, households that have more children versus less and things like that, the higher society people tend to have less, believe it or not, than middle class and lower class, right? We're in that middle lower class where we average 2 to 3 per household, and the upper class actually only averages, they say 1, right? So they may be looking at down, they go, hey, we got to eradicate them. And so even like in the 1950s when food preservatives were presented, right? And this is just a quick adage, just a thought that, those food preservatives were added so that shelf life would be extended, and then in turn you could produce more, have it last longer, make it cheaper. Well, if you're filthy rich, you're eating fresh out the ocean, you're eating like fresh caught, like somebody's out butchering the cow out back for you and creating the steak that day. You're not having to go into Safeway or Rayleigh's or Lucky's or whatever it is across the nation, like your grocery stores. I did a little travel across the nation. I can't believe how many different grocery store chains there are. You leave California, like, wow, I've never even heard of this place. It's cool. So wherever your major grocery store chain is, they're not going in buying canned beans or Top Ramen. By the way, Top Ramen's great. Just going to throw that out there. Or great food. Lots of preservatives. Probably isn't the healthiest for you. But, within 20 years, like cancer cases started jumping through the roof, right? Left and right. And then you have the fact that, do you know that in 1980s, do you know that there was, vaccine-wise, kids only had a max 12 total vaccine shots. I don't know if you guys saw this number. Did you guys see the number I'm about to talk about?
I have no idea.
Okay, great. In 2019, how many vaccine shots do you think now kids are supposed to get?
35.
Are we
And
talking like just vaccines in general? Or are we talking like
total vaccine shots. There's
immunization shots and all that? It's kind of like anything shots.
There was 12 in 1980s.
I can tell you from having kids.
Yeah.
And I'm not old, but
Right.
having the amount of shots that I had growing up, I'd say 3 to 4 times the original number.
Yeah. Listen, 54.
As of 2019, yeah.
54.
So you ask yourself, anti-vaxxers may not be crazy because when you see something like, what was the number, 12 in the 80s, which is right, that's me.
Me?
Right?
Yeah. I
12,
didn't have 54. I'm still alive.
I got one in my butt cheek every year. Right?
54. Are we talking about when they're a baby?
From the day they're born until about 12 years old.
Okay.
They have a total of 54. In 1980s, it was only 12.
Wow.
12 total.
You had a bunch early on.
Yep.
And then when you hit about 5 or 6, it went to annually, and you would have like one shot a year kind of thing.
That's
now, there were other shots,
Wow.
but it varied. That number may not be static as of 12. It may have been 12 to 16. But the reality is it was far less than it is now.
And again, coincidence? Let me just throw this back at you. Coincidence, over 400% increase in child cases of cancer and leukemia. Just, again, coincidence? Could be. It could just be the foods. There's so many different things that could be making this. And that's why there's all this stuff. Everything causes cancer. Well, maybe. I don't know. But at the end of the day, 12 shots versus now 54, right? Yeah. Which is why so many people...
It's convenient that everything causes cancer, isn't it?
Very convenient. Very convenient. But again, I'm back to the question is, what is there still to do if we're overpopulating the earth and this truly is a concern? Now, if Global Footprint Network was right, and in 2019, the food sources, the water sources were depleted by mid-year for 2019, we start dipping into 2020, the snowball effect. Don't you find there's just a little bit of weird also coincidence that this Wuhan, China lab at the end of 2019 supposedly creates the COVID-19 coronavirus. Same year that few years back, the Global Footprint Network said we would be depleting our mid-year resources, our year's resources mid-year. That same year, COVID-19 hits. COVID-19 launches. Again, human resilience kicked in. They say that the numbers are like mortality rate is less than 1%. Okay. And right behind it, and this is the biggest elephant in the room. Again, all coincidence. Who knows? This is why we're discussing it. The Thanos Society possibly behind it. Who really knows? Again, human resilience kicks in. This virus doesn't kill as many as you planned it to. And you start launching out vaccines faster than you've ever done with less research than you've ever had. And you're pushing it harder than you ever have. And the argument, a lot of people are like, well, smallpox and polio. Just so you guys know what the mortality percentage rate of, say, smallpox was?
It was high. And I remember that I actually saw these numbers the other day. Somebody showed them the different like things that we
it's
had
going around. Yeah, they're showing it.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Specifically those two, because that's really so many people that have gone and got the vax. Again, hey people, it's your choice. We love you no matter what. Remember that. We're not here pro-vax. We're not against vax. We're not anything. We just want to talk, and we just want to open up the eyes and open up discussion. Your thoughts, you tell us. But hey, again, for smallpox and polio specifically, one of the two biggest arguments about, well, you got the smallpox and polio vaccine, and that's how it stopped it, the mortality percentage. And just also so you know, those are more diseases than they are viruses. Diseases don't mutate. Viruses do, so it's really harder to stop a virus with vaccine. It doesn't really stop it, but that's fine. Hey, again, just that's science. Again,
science shows that you can't cure a virus.
You cannot. It's never been cured. Otherwise, we'd have cured the cold and flu a heck of a long time ago.
You can cure a disease.
Correct. So, again, with that being said, the percentage, the mortality rate was 30%. 30% mortality rate.
Wow.
That means that you had a 30% chance of dying.
Regardless of age.
Regardless of anything when you got it. regardless of age, regardless of preconditions. If you could have been the healthiest person in the world, you could run every day, drink water, drink organic, eat organic everything, never eat sugar, never eat carb, whatever the case may be. You could have been the healthiest, genetically tip-top shape, and you still had a 30% chance of survival because you didn't know how it was going to affect your body at the end of the day. Yes, you may have had a little bit better chance if you were a little bit healthier, and maybe it was less than 30% chance, but it was an average out chance, 30% chance across the board. Boom. Less than 1% chance of mortality. They blasted that on all the news. So if you're going to believe the news, they've showed it themselves, right? It's all over the place. Less than a 1% chance of dying from it. Yet we're pushing this as if this is a plague, as if we're in the Dark Ages and the Black Plague is coming and wiping out all.
Bring out your dead.
Yeah, bring out. So.
You know what I'm
Yeah. little Monty Python hit there.
Bring out your
Come
dead.
on. So that it all comes back to the push. Take away people's rights until they get it. Give them money until they get it. Do this and do that. For whatever reason, they're doing it. But I ask you this before we end. If all of this is because we are coming down to the wire, if the Global Footprint Network is right, 2019, we depleted half the resources for that, or all the resources for that year, halfway through the year, and we're pushing into 2020's resources, and now the clock has begun. Thanos Society is possibly real. They know this is coming. Self-preservation sets in. They go, heck, we've done everything we can for the last 100 years, from wars to viruses created in labs. We've done everything we can. More vaccines for kids, put stuff in food, spray stuff in the air, as Andy and I were talking about the other day. Whatever you believe or don't believe, if this potential issue is coming, overpopulation and depletion of our resources, and this is why we see all this right today, why we see this push for this vaccine and whatever it's going to do, if that's really what it is. Hey, the vaccine may not be this, they may say, hey, that's why there's a percentage, like 95% of everybody get it, because maybe statistically or scientifically they know that majority, that maybe they know that half of human beings will survive the vaccine and half won't. Maybe it's like the snap, right?
Maybe, now hear me out. Yeah. Maybe when they were making this virus in Wuhan, they made it so that, it looks like a flu, and then you have it, you kind of get over it, it's whatever, and then it lies dormant. And then
like 3 years later, it hits you
3
hard.
years later, it'll kill you unless you followed what daddy government said and you got the vaccine. Now
the vaccine was actually the cure.
Now all that's left are the sheep that listen to you. No one defies you.
Whoa.
What a society.
So before we just close out on these thoughts, there's the Rise Melbourne page on Twitter just is going nuts. Because one of Australia's leaders, it basically gets out and says, again, this is Australia. It's like the worst there, right? The worst push, hard push. Because why is there such a hard, fast, quick move, get it, right? 90% double vaxxed rate in Australia currently.
Wow.
That leaves 10% unvaxxed. He's now restricting and will remain restricted even non-essential retail. Like he's claiming going to restrict essential. That means grocery stores and things like that. He's on the again.
They're already in camps.
90%.
At what point do we call him a dictator?
Right.
And right. I mean, like, let's be real. Like, I've not looked a lot into this. I've seen it on the news, and
but that's what I'm saying. I don't think I can tell you there's a lot of people that don't even know this is going on in Australia because they're showing so lightly of it because they don't want the fear behind it. But here's this guy. Here's the leader of Australia. 90% double vax. That means that 90% of the population has already gotten multiple vax, like the first shot and the second. And
they already have herd immunity almost 2 times over.
Correct, according to science. And yet he's now increasing the restrictions.
So
taking it to another level for the last 10%.
Why would I get the vaccination?
Right.
If 90% have double vax,
right,
and you're locking everything down,
yeah,
the risk is still the same.
Right.
Like, why would I risk my health
but that's
for
just
it?
The question is, why the hardcore push? And keep in mind, Australia does have resource issues as far as food and water. Just so you know, most of the country is barren. Like
Right. They're not able to grow on it, right?
Yeah,
like
it's very barren.
I think I heard that.
It's like desert-like.
Yeah, the outback is just inhabitable.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they serve steaks
and
and
they-
onions that they
Yeah.
fry.
right and
Yeah.
shrimp.
The Outback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
On the
and
Barbie.
The
The Barbie.
Barbie.
Yeah,
Barbie.
Bobby. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. So love that.
With the
love that.
wallabies.
Listen, I love Outback
Oh.
Steakhouse, guys. It's fantastic. But you know, I'm gonna have to boycott them. No, I'm just kidding. Love Outback. But anyway, so you know, if this is truly happening, and the society knows that if this is potentially plausible or probable, whatever the case may be, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, what has to happen? If there's a clock is started and that is real, not a conspiracy theory. If it's real, just leaving it out there. What has to happen? So, you know, Thanos eradicated half the population with a snap. Maybe, just maybe, our current Thanos society is doing it with a jab. But the question is, how do they do it without us knowing they exist and why they're doing it? And that will be for the next episode. Twister World fam, we love you. Coming at you next time. Catch us there.